Hey everybody, welcome to 20Q 20 Questions with Interesting People, where we learn the origin stories of everyday superheroes in the LGBT community and friends. I am your host, the very handsome Tim Kirk, and our guest this time is Andreena Leeanne. Andreena is an out and proud Black working class lesbian inspirational speaker and poet. She writes and performs poetry to come to terms and speak about her personal experience with homelessness, mental health, childhood sexual abuse, and the many other challenges she has faced in her life. By speaking her truth, she hopes to inspire and empower others. In January 2015, Andreena founded Poetry LGBT Open Mic Night. Poetry LGBT is a warm and welcoming space for the LGBT plus community to come together to share their experiences and creativity through poetry and spoken word. Andreena recently started Adult Survivors Open Mic for survivors of abuse to share their story through poetry. Andreena delivers writing workshops online and in person and has performed her poetry at various community-led events, Labour Party events, and for local authorities such as London Borough Hackney during LGBT History Month, the Greater London Authority, and International Women's Day events, and has had her work published in the anthology Sister from Team Angelica in 2018. Her debut poetry collection, Charred, has also been published by Team Angelica in October of 2020. In 2018, she was one of Stonewall's Black History Month role models. In 2020, she has been shortlisted for a Positive LGBT Role Model National Diversity Award. Charred is available to purchase on Amazon and Etsy. Hi, Andreena. How are you doing today?
Hi, Tim. Hi, thank you.
Well, we're going to start with our first question, as always. A little bit about your background. Where are you originally from, and what was it like?
So I am 39 years old. I was born in London, and when I was 1 year old, I went to. My mum sent me to live in Jamaica with my grandparents. So I grew up in Jamaica until the age of 7, when I returned to the UK to reunite and live with my mum in London.
Wow. So all your formative years were in Jamaica.
Yeah. And it was really exciting because, you know, I feel like my creativity and just like my humbleness and all of that comes from growing up in the country part of Jamaica where many people didn't have anything. We had to be resourceful and make our own toys and create our own enjoyment. So I think that experience has helped make me the person I am today, really.
That's interesting. I know somebody who grew up in Cuba, and he was telling me the very similar story for toys and for parts on these cars that still drive around beautifully. They actually have to find a piece of metal and carve out the parts or make their own toys because they didn't have anything. There wasn't any stores and nothing was being manufactured for them. So they had to figure out a way to do it for themselves. So it does make you quite resourceful. And you look at things very differently, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate everything I have. And I tend to keep things for a really long time. I'm not one of those people who needs to always buy new clothes or buy new electronics or, every time something new comes out, I'm thinking, what is that? I'm interested in that. That's not me at all. And I think that's from my past experience of growing up, having to be resourceful and make things and appreciate what we have. And my grandparents are like that as well. They're not the type of people that are into credit or anything like that. So I live within my means. Like I was saying, if I don't need the latest TV, do you know what I mean? I could have a TV for 20 years, or anything, not just a TV. It could be anything. I could have the things that I have. I tend to look after, and if it's broken, I'll try and fix it before I replace it. And I think that comes from those earlier years, my upbringing.
I completely understand. My mother was one of 11 children born into poverty in Dublin, Ireland. And her father died when she was 6. A sister and 3 brothers passed away during their youth or the young adulthood. And she was sent to live with the infamous Magdalene sisters. Seeing as you have this extraordinary background, what would you say is the life experience that had the greatest impact on you?
Wow, the life experience that had the greatest impact on me. I'm not sure. I've had loads of life experiences, both positive and negative ones. Um, I could start on a positive one, I guess. One life experience is growing up with my mom, who is a single parent. Um, she was quite resourceful as well, and she played both the mother and father roles in our household when we came back to London and lived in London with her. And I just saw how she was able to fix things and do things, and if a light bulb needs changing, she would change it. If something needs fixing, she'll do it. So I guess that's had an impact on me, because I've been able to just try and do things myself. I found it difficult to ask for help a lot of the time. I'm actually learning that now, but um, I'm just so good at problem solving, things that need doing. Even if it's like manual labor, I'm not shy of manual labor, from doing anything with my hands or getting stuck into something. So I think that's had a massive impact on me. I'm not one of those people that need other people to do stuff. I'm quite good at doing things by myself.
Okay, very good.
And I think I learned that from seeing how independent she was, or is, because she's still alive. We've had our differences. We have a lot of issues. Our mother and daughter relationship is very strained. However, when you asked that question, that was the first image that popped into my head, like how resilient and strong and independent my mom is.
Funny. I interviewed.
Even though we're not speaking now.
I understand that. I've had most of the people who have been on the show have been members of the community. I've had a transitioning former U.S. military person who was in a lot of trouble and using drugs, and his parents kicked him out. Went to live with his aunt. He spent a month there, and she straightened him out. Joined the military. Was in Afghanistan for 4 years. Came back. I helped him get an internship at NBC, and then he got his degree. Then he got his graduate degree. Transitioned. Went from male to female, and nobody batted an eye when he said he was transitioning. But then 7 months later, she's told people she was vegan, and they all freaked out on her. So I've had that, and I've had other people tell me stories. One gentleman his name is Ted Santos. He is the chairman of ex-CEOs, and what they do is they're retired CEOs who give advice, keep themselves busy and give advice. And he told me the story when he was about 5 years old. He was in the car with his mother, and with his brother and his mother, and the car had an accident, went off the road, and his mother, because she just had the survival instinct, ran about a mile with 2 broken legs to get help. So,
wow.
Yeah. And other people told me, one fellow, his name is Matt Erickson, who he just kept on hitting me with one thing after another. He had a degree in theater. He was from upstate New York, near the Canadian border, and his mother became ill, and his father had left. There was no father, and he had to take leave from his job. Finances cratered. Mother died. He became addicted to meth. He lost his job. He lost where he was living. Became homeless. Slept in his car. Then he found his way into public housing. Then he got a job, and he became the first out person to work at this company, which they had to have him read a disclaimer before being on the show because they didn't want to be legally obligated to anything he may have said. He became. He found out that he was HIV positive, and he's living his life. And you go, wow, and I'm just so lucky. I'm just so fortunate. It's relatively minor compared to other people, even though I've had my own issues with sexual abuse, but that was at the hands of other boys at school. But that was not nothing. Where other people tell me the stories, it's amazing. Everybody has a story, and you started off with a great one. So, since you're doing so well with LGBT poetry, what would you say to anyone interested in an aspect of your experience? Meaning, if someone wanted to explore an idea or prospective opportunity based on what you can tell them, what would be the main thing to encourage and or discourage them?
When I started Poetry LGBT in 2015, I had never done it before. I'd never hosted an event before. I'd never organized an event before. And I just did it. I did a little bit of research and just did it. And it turned out to be a really successful event. We had 125 people turn up at the event, and I was really proud of it. I was like, wow, this is awesome. So the advice that I would give to anybody if they want to try something is to just try it. Just try it, do it. It doesn't matter if you think you're not going to be good enough, or if you think you can't do it, or whatever those negative sort of like voices in your head is, or the comments from anybody else, ignore those and do it anyway, because what you'll probably find is that you'll learn from it. And if you want to do it again, you'll do it again, and you may learn to do things differently. I'd say the advice I would give to anybody wanting to try and attempt something with very little experience, just try it anyway and see what's the worst that can happen.
I completely agree with you. I mean, that's most of the things I've ever done in my life. I either got laughed at or got the stink eye because I was doing something that it didn't mesh with what people perceived of me, and I did it anyway, and I just forged through. And my attitude was, what is the worst that can happen? You're just going to learn a little bit more every time you do anything anyway. And you learn what works and what doesn't. And then if you have any aptitude at all, someone somewhere is going to tap you on the shoulder and give you a hint just to make life a little bit easier, put you in a better direction. And it just works out that way. But, it's practice makes perfect. And the fact that you are applying yourself. I do believe that for sure.
And you just make tweaks along the way, and you learn things along the way. I think, loads of people say that their biggest regret is not having done something that they wanted to do before in their life. And that's usually because somebody else said to them they couldn't do it, or they shouldn't do it, or anything like that. And I just think that we do have so many sort of negative self-beliefs and negativity from other people that it does get in the way. But I think if you really want to try something new, just do it.
Yes, and I absolutely believe that most of the time what you're seeing is the projection of other people's insecurity.
Yeah.
And you can't go by that. That's just no way to go through anything. And you can see that in the way they conduct themselves. So it should be something, we learn that, but I think it galvanizes you when you realize no, I can do this, or I can do it to whatever degree I can, and then I'm just going to keep on building on it, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so what would you say is your most noteworthy achievement?
I think, my most noteworthy achievement to date is my daughter, Renee. She's 18 years old,
Wow.
and I think she's my biggest achievement because my journey with childhood sexual abuse and homelessness and all the issues that I've been through, all the problems that I've had, I've still managed to bring up a child who is respectful, she's beautiful, she's creative, she's articulate, she's all of those things um, that any mother would want their daughter to be. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, she wasn't like me. When I was a child, a teenager, I started smoking at 13. Like, I was partying and sneaking out of the house. I was quite promiscuous. I was all of those things. And Renee is nothing like that. Renee is nothing like I was when I was young. And when I reflected on it, I recognized that she didn't have the problems that I had growing up. Do you know what I mean? I had quite deep issues um, as a result of um, being sexually abused. So I forgive myself for how I was when I was a teenager and how I behaved, because any teenager would have behaved in a really terrible way, having gone through all of the things that I've been through. So growing her up and seeing her grow and develop into a young woman, now she's 18, I would say she's my biggest achievement. And she's absolutely nothing like I was when I was growing up.
Wow, spectacular. That's great. I can see the look of pride. You see this beautiful look on your face talking about you.
Yeah.
That's
She's
terrific.
not perfect. She's not perfect by
Well,
any stretch of the imagination. No one's perfect. But when I compare her, well, she's had a different life to mine, to be honest. I've protected her and done the best I can for her for 18 years. So, yeah, she's done well. So I say she's my biggest achievement.
that's fantastic. I have uh, two brothers and three sisters. We're all married, and I have 7 nieces and nephews and 12 grandnieces and nephews, which I still can't believe. That's amazing. The youngest one is 4 months old, and the oldest one is 12. And I look at how my nephews and nieces have grown into adults and parents, and I'm just I'm constantly marvel at what a job they've done. What they were able to do, and how well what nice fine people they've grown into. Which you don't expect them to be adults in your mind, and then you see them as adults, and you see them as parents, and you just go. I remember you when you were a little kid, and I never expected you to grow up, let alone, to grow into such a good person. And it's something else when you see them, and it's a very rewarding thing. If you felt that you contributed anything to helping them be that person, it's very satisfying. It's a very rewarding thing, and I see them doing it with their kids, and I just, wow, look at you. You're doing great. So it's a lot harder in your personal experience, and it's a lot easier to appreciate other people who do well. Because I had, I think most people, LGBT people, we have a much higher degree of sexual abuse and substance abuse. I've done a pod or two about this, and because of trauma, and there was two different medical and psychiatric organizations in America who track this, where I think about 10% of the population of this country suffers from some sort of substance abuse, and some of it is also tied to chronic pain, believe it or not. But 25 to 35% of the LGBT population. So triple plus of the straight population has experienced, and that a lot of that is directly attributed to sexual abuse. You know, 1 in 4 women have been sexually assaulted, and I think it's 1 in 7 or 8 men, or 1 in 6 men, myself included. And it's something that, especially growing up Catholic, not having the ability to go to anybody who would be receptive to your problems, because it was in a Catholic environment. So of course the first thing is that you're mistaken, and then you're wrong, and then they blame you, and then it's your fault, you're using it as an excuse, and anything to deflect because of the long history of abuse. So yeah, I see that so many people have to overcome these things. We didn't have support groups. I've talked to people. I've done one. Actually, Lee liked one I did. My very first time going to a gay bar. That was 1979, and I was terrified. And there was no support groups. Now I've actually seen in bars kids going to a gay bar for the first time with their parents, and were their parents waiting outside with them, and they go in. It's very tentative, and this is all the support. You have this embracing, loving support now, which we didn't have. You had to lie and hide and run. And the gay bars, all the gay bars had some sort of blue or orange or yellow or red light overhead, and there was never a direct line of sight because people went into them to. And now it's a completely different experience, and people are welcome with open arms, and it's so affirmative, and you have so many allies, and I can see how much different it is, but it's got to be a fantastic experience to go through this now.
Yeah, but it's us and the people who came before us who have carved the way for young people to be more comfortable to be themselves and come out as gay now. So it's a long history of people before coming out. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
that gives people now that freedom to be themselves. There's still a lot of work to do, but I guess we do need to acknowledge all the work that's led to young people being able to freely express themselves in the way they do today.
Yeah, I've had to explain to people in work environments, especially if I'm in a meeting with another gay person, I make the gay joke, nothing sexual, but just as an identifier. And people say, you always got to do that. And I say, yes, I do. You have to be out. You have to out yourself all the time. But this isn't something you can just put up on a shelf and say once and everybody agrees with and you forget about. This is who I am every day, and I have to tell everybody. It's a continual process. And there is a mentality amongst people. Now, I live in Chelsea, New York, which was the epicenter of gay life for many years. West Village, Chelsea, and then Hell's Kitchen in New York. And Chelsea is coming back with more younger gay men are moving here now again. And there has been a source of consternation and anger from people from my generation and older when they speak to younger gay men who just take for granted the ability to walk down the street holding hands, or to not try to cover up your natural personality and try to put a mask on of being butch or no one has to do that here. And there's a gentleman, his name is Mike Diamond, who does he does video stuff on YouTube, and he's approached people at the Christopher Street Piers, which is the famous piers. And this park is beautiful now. And in the old days, it was this rickety ramshackle thing, and there would be thousands of men there. And now he go there, and it's a public park enjoyed by people pushing strollers. And he walked up to people. He did a man on the street. And you're standing on the shoulders of people who sacrifice themselves for you. And they don't know that it was actually real. They think it's some sort of didactic fiction. Like, no, this really, really happened. People become a little bit angry at them for not appreciating what these other fellows have done for them. In the 60s, on Fire Island, which is, gay heaven, the police would routinely come on Sundays. The whole party, the idea of, the Tea Party, that was an old-fashioned idea that was used by gay people to avoid, to get around not being able to serve liquor to homosexuals, and a whole load of things that, or the way we dance now, that started because of the police would bust people if they danced with each other. So the way dance, all the frug and all the stuff that people do now, that's all because of gay people not being allowed to touch each other. And when they did, they'd be arrested by the police, and the police would chain them to each other. And they'd take their pictures and humiliate them, and then they would lose their jobs because it would be published in the newspaper. And none of these people seem to understand this. And it's just so confounding for so many older gay men who don't, they've suffered through all this, and they can't possibly understand why you haven't understood and embraced it. And a lot of the young activists do. But these other guys so blithely just take it for granted that this didn't happen all by itself.
Yeah, that's why it's good for history to be told, for young people to connect with older people and to learn the history of how things were and how compared to how they are now. I think there's definitely a young people and older people divide. And I think young people there needs to be more spaces for young people and older people to come together. To appreciate the history and to have conversations about these things. I remember only last week I was watching, there's this YouTube channel where these older gay guys all talk about. Have you seen it? Yeah,
yes.
they
5 or 6 guys.
5 or 6 guys, and they talk about different things, and it's shocking when you read the comments. When you read the comments in the YouTube, like there's lots of young people that are there commenting, saying, they didn't know that older gay men exist in the world. They've never seen a older gay man before. Like, I just think there's just a total disconnect.
Yes. I have a YouTube channel, and I was lucky enough to videotape the inside of one of the legendary leather bars, probably the most famous leather bar in New York. It was called the Eagle. And all the other Eagle bars, and those are all leather bars around the country. They're not affiliated with this one particular place. But the gentleman who owned it just got tired and wanted to retire. And he let me shoot the inside of it. And this was, I think, in 1998, 1999. And I couldn't put it up until about 8 or 9, maybe 12 years ago or something like that, because YouTube didn't exist until 2005. So I put up this video and showing what this place was like. And the neighborhood itself was run down. It was the west side of Manhattan. It had all been shipping and cruise ships and boats. And then when boats got bigger and people moved away, it just became dilapidated. It fell down. So gay people moved in to these crummy places to take them over. It was cheap, and this is how they can identify, and no one was bothering them. So this bar was it was a little bit old, and it was a lot of it was makeshift, and they built around the makeshift, and it became something. But it was not a glamorous place by any stretch. And I posted this video quite some time ago, and every 6 weeks to 2 months, I'll get a comment from someone. And I shake my head, and I just like, they're so dismissive and so nasty about things. Like, you can't understand. This is all we had. This was the thing. This was the only thing that you could go to. It was an oasis. People needed to get away from their lives so they could identify and speak to each other, communicate and understand. And they just don't have any grasp of this. It doesn't fit into their worldview at all. So it's an amazing thing. And they're so bitter. And they're so cruel about, which I don't understand. You haven't experienced this. You don't understand. You don't have any compassion or empathy for other people. And it's great that you have a life that doesn't have to be so threatened. But I don't understand why you just decide that you don't have to care about anybody else. And that's one of the big criticisms. That's always been a criticism of every generation says that about the generation following them. It's just that it's more glaringly noticeable because they're so entitled, and it's a little bit irksome because you're not showing the due gratitude and respect to people who've done this, who led the path for you.
Yeah, it is important to mention not all young people are like that, though. And there are still, lots of countries in the world where being gay is punishable by death,
Yes.
So, yeah, there are a lot of... I interact with Poetry LGBT. I interact with a lot of people of different ages. And, yeah, it's important to note that not all young people are like that. Tim, can I read my poem? It's called I Am Free.
Please.
Yeah, because our conversation just reminded me of what it was like in the 90s and when I came out. So, yes, it's from my book, Charred, A Survivor Speaks Her Truth to Inspire. This poem's called I Am Free. I spent my teenage years listening to lyrics like Buju Banton's Boom Bye Bye in a batty boy head. What he's saying is that gay people should be shot in the head. Imagine that. Those lyrics were heard by millions. In those days, it never made me angry. In fact, I used to dance to it. I could name a few more. T.O.K., Elephant Man, Vibes Cartel. In the 90s, those tunes dominated the dance floor within my bedroom walls. In 1999, I married a man. Was I in denial? Threesome, anyone? Yes, me, him, and she. I came out as a lesbian in 2003. Looking back, all the clues were there. It's just me that couldn't see. People knew I was gay before me. It must have been the way I looked at my friend's auntie, or the way I dressed and rebelled by shaving my head, or maybe because I rode a moped. The truth is, I chose not to see. I was too afraid to be true to me. People were too judgmental back then. I cared way too much about what people thought and said. I met a girl who took me to a gay club. Those homophobic tunes were played by gay DJs in those gay clubs. What a headfuck. People I knew said they liked the beat and ignored the lyrics. I'm not exactly sure when or why something changed, but there was uproar. Buju and other bashment artists were banned. Us gays had taken a stand. Out with that shit. It was no longer acceptable to listen to it. I no longer had to listen to it. They say I'm an activist. It's been a process, all part of the journey. I am free to finally be who I'm meant to be, loving living this reality within the LGBTQ plus community. My dysfunctional and disjointed family may not be proud of me, but I'm able to maintain my sanity and not let them get the better of me mentally. I'm going to take a bow because I'm happy now. I'm free. So yeah, that poem is called I Am Free.
I read
from my
that.
book, Charred. I wrote a poem called Same Difference because of the experiences that I've had in the LGBT community. I felt compelled to write about it. It's called Same Difference. I'll just quickly read this poem. Stare at me, please. I like it. Check out my hair. It's the texture of rough cotton before it's relaxed. Stare at me, please. My brows are a few shades darker than yours. My lashes shade and protect my eyes as they do yours. Look into my eyes. Tear ducts in their corners where tears fall, stream, and gush. Stare at me, please. I like it. Check out my nose as it's uncommonly smaller than yours. Check out my lips. They too were made to kiss and pout the occasional lipstick. Tell me if we don't breathe the same way as I take a gulp of air into my lungs and breathe out. My neck, my arms, my elbows. This finger too awaits that special ring. My breasts, my back. Cut me some slack as you check out my fat. Now focus on my feet. They're more or less the same as yours. 10-toed, arched heels, and a callus or two. Me, you, they, her, and him, please. Check out my skin. sweet shea buttered melanin. Cut me deep and see if we don't bleed the same way. See if my blood goes from dark to red when it hits the bed. Stare at me, please. I like it. White, black, yellow, purple, or blue, I stare at you too. Yes, there are so many similarities. Now you tell me if we're so different. Thank you. That was Same Difference from my poetry book, Charred. A survivor speaks her truth to inspire. And it was mainly aimed at a white audience. I would go around to different London events and perform that poem to a largely white audience so that they can look at themselves and look at me and actually realize that there are similarities. We're not so different as human beings, you know. And as a community, I really champion unity within our community. It's really important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I see. A point of frustration for a lot of people is it's not one day a year where you go around and take your shirt off and march down Fifth Avenue and wave and pretend, and then you go your own way to go get high and play with each other. That's not the point. This is just to let everybody to know we're here. We're standing up. We're being counted.
Yeah, we're gay every day of the year,
Yes.
and we need to address the challenges that are happening within our community, the issues.
Even with allies, I've had, and the best boss I ever had is a great guy. I'm still friends with him, and I haven't worked for him 9 years, but he's been good, very good to me, and a great guy. And when I started to be involved with a lot of activism, I would have conversations or discuss things with him and other people. And the gay calendar is just completely invisible to straight people. They don't know what our significant dates are. They don't know what Spirit Day is. They don't know what Stonewall really means. They don't know when is Gay Pride. And I would often get this question, oh, they're doing that again this year? Like, they do it again every year. When do they do that? They do that. It's the last Sunday of every June in New York.
I think because of capitalism and consumerism and things like that, I think lots of organizations are really paying attention to our gay calendar because they realize that they can capitalize off our events. They can, design their merchandise around our pride colors. They can capitalize off the pink pound, if you like. In the UK, we call it the pink pound. We call it pink washing. There's a lot of organizations that jump on the bandwagon of LGBT culture and occasions to be able to profit and make money from it. And that as well is problematic because as soon as the Pride event is over, all of those things that the merchandise that they came up with to sell then becomes really cheap or reduced or discounted in the shops. It's business.
Yeah. So anyway,
how many of those questions have we got through already? It feels like you've only asked me like 5 questions. We've got loads to go.
Well, actually, the next one is the biggest personal challenge you have faced. Personal injury, a seemingly overwhelming task, a personal or professional goal, a difficult situation you had to overcome. Which do you think it was?
I would say a transformational moment in my life is when I decided to quit smoking. I was 28 years old. I smoked 20 cigarettes a day and I didn't have any money. So any money that I did have went on cigarettes and, I would reduce the amount of food I would consume to be able to buy cigarettes. I always provided enough for my daughter, but I would often go without because I wanted to smoke. So when I quit smoking, that was a major transformation because I had started smoking when I was 13 and I quit when I was 28. I realized that that hold that smoking had on me for 15 years, I was able to let that go. I was able to kick that habit. And when I did that, that sort of transformed me into knowing that anything is possible. That is when I realized I could achieve anything when I quit smoking.
Very
So
good.
I'd say that was a transformational moment because once I kicked that habit, I was able to then like set other goals and motivate myself to achieve more because that was massive for me.
Yeah, I remember smoking too. I was a very heavy smoker, and actually I had walking pneumonia, and that made it a lot easier to quit. But yeah, it was a big moment in my life. I definitely see that.
Yeah, and it's been 11 years, and I haven't touched a cigarette since. So it's yeah, and I keep a diary every year. I have a paper diary, and at the back of each diary, I made a list of all the achievements and accomplishments I've made that year, and that started the year I stopped smoking. So I've got 11 of these diaries now where I can look back at each of them and see what I accomplished that year.
That's excellent. So, it's just really cool. So based on that, and since you have so much to talk about and this experience, what drives you? What gets you up in the morning?
What drives me and what gets me up in the morning, I think, is my gratitude for life. Like, I actually love living. I love living. You know, I've got this quote where I say, I love living, and living is what I love the most about life. And I feel so grateful to be here because when you think about it, like, you can go deep with this conversation. Like, when you think about how much egg and sperm is wasted, like, when you think about it getting wasted in the world, like how comes I'm here? Like, I've never really understood like how some people get to be here and so many others don't. Like, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like how many eggs are released during period, or sperm is released during sex. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you think about it, but then like, I'm here, you're here, like so many other billions of people are on the planet. It's almost like we're the chosen ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but I just think that just thinking about life like that, I know that the circumstances of how I came to be here is not really pretty. Yeah, I was conceived in sort of like lies and deceit and affairs and all sorts. But the fact that I am here, what drives me to get up and do stuff is feeling privileged that I actually have a life. Like, I exist in the world. So what can I do today? I always make my to-do list and I work on my to-do list and I'm like, okay, I don't always achieve my goals and I don't always tick off all of the things on the to-do list. I don't always tick off all of them, but it gives me satisfaction to know that I've got things to work towards, or I've got people to see or people to speak to, that, you know, I've got a contribution in this world. And now that I've been speaking my truth about abuse and helping other people to speak their truth about abuse, that drives me even more because I think, right, whose life can I impact today? And that's what drives me.
That's kind of cool. So, what's the first thing you want to come to people's minds when they think of you?
I want people to think of me as being warm and welcoming. and accepting. Because I accept everybody. I'm warm and welcoming. In the spaces where I create, for people to share and express themselves on these open mic events that I create, that's the feedback that I get. People say that it's very warm and welcoming space. And I bring that energy. So that's what I would like people to think of me, that I'm warm and welcoming.
It's great. I've had a lot of people tell me so many different things. I want people to think that I'm authentic. I think I'm for real. I don't think that I don't try to be anything that I don't try to be anything that I'm not. And I hope I don't come across that way. But that's my goal, is for people to find that, you're talking to the real person here. I'm not. This is what you see is what you get. And I try to
like that.
Yeah, that's one of my goals. That's in life, is to just, because it's the Polonius to Laertes, to this above all else, to thine own self be true. You can't, if you're true to yourself, you cannot go wrong. You may not be the most successful person in the world, but you can't go wrong. You have to be who you are.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. I wish I gave that answer now. That was a good one. That is exactly me as well. I would like people to know and think of me that I'm my true self. But people do anyway. People tell me that all the time. They they say that I'm exactly the same person. I'm exactly the same person. I'm consistent with being who I am, which must mean that I am being myself at all times.
Yeah. So here's a good question. I get this from a lot of people. Like when I ask people what gets you up in the morning, some people have actually told me coffee. I said, well, that's great. But what is your Zen?
My Zen is sitting by myself or with other people by the seaside, or somewhere where there's a large body of water. So it could be a seaside, a lake, a river, a brook, anything where there's water, where I'm sitting quietly, where I'm just sitting quietly and listening to the sounds of the water. That's my Zen.
So anyway, I'm going to get to the last of my 10 questions, which is a question I've had just the widest range of answers on this. And people can be consistent in some areas, but a lot of people have very different takes on this because it's based on their personal experience. So the question is the threshold. Now, the threshold is a point in your life where you realize that there is no going back. Not only is there no going back, but the door you just came through has been sealed over, bricked up, and painted so you can't even tell there was even a door there. How did you know when you arrived there? How did it feel to cross it? What was the significance to you, and what did you leave behind? What are you glad you left behind, and what do you regret leaving behind?
Wow, that question is huge, isn't it? It's massive. Yeah. That's a massive question.
It is.
I think the threshold for me is the day that I decided to speak about my experience, about what happened to me, being sexually abused by my mom's husband when I was 5 till I was 10.
Yes.
Having to speak about that, having not only coming to terms with what happened, because that's a lifelong process, but deciding to speak about it after being silent for 30 years, that was my threshold. And once I was able to speak about it and write about it, there was no going back for me. There was no going back. It almost felt like that a ton of weight came off my shoulders. This was in 2019. I started speaking my truth about the abuse. And so it's very recent, if you like, but it's when the day that I broke my silence on that was when I knew there was no going back. Because now I speak about it. I'm free to speak about my truth. I speak about it to inspire other people to speak about it, to encourage other people who have been through it to write about their experience and share their experience so that we can help other people and we can help each other, because a lot of people have been through a lot of things, and by speaking about our truths and our experiences, we help other people to speak about theirs. And it's felt like a massive relief to be able to speak about this stuff. It's a huge subject. I feel like my whole existence is now like a massive trigger warning, because I've created spaces where, like a workshop where people can speak their truth about abuse. I've created an open mic night where people speak their truth about abuse. Like, everything about me right now is about, selling copies of my book so that people can read my truth about abuse and maybe start sharing theirs and having the courage to write about their experience with abuse. Because like you said earlier on in the conversation, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men are affected by this. And those are huge numbers, when you think about it. So what do I leave behind? I leave behind years of secrecy and blame. I leave behind years of, the trauma is still there, but I leave behind years of feeling as if it was my fault. I know it's not my fault. I'm nearly 40 years old. And I know, after all these years, I know for a fact that I was not to blame for what happened to me. And so I leave that behind. I leave behind guilt. I leave behind fear, because I'm not being silenced by anybody. At the beginning of the conversation, I did say to you that I no longer speak to my mum, or should I say she no longer speaks to me, because she can't deal with the fact that I'm speaking about this huge issue that was private within our family and is now public, very public. But yeah, what do I regret leaving behind? What do I regret leaving behind? I don't want to say that I regret not speaking about this earlier, because there's so many reasons why I didn't speak about it earlier. Life doesn't work like that. Where I grew up in Jamaica, they have a saying where they say nothing happens before the time, and now is the time. So I can't really regret that. I can't really regret that. There's loads of reasons why I never spoke about it earlier. It's been quite a painful journey, and I was focused on bringing up my child, who's now 18. So now that she is 18, I feel like I can just be my authentic self and speak my truth, and the days when I feel emotional or really down, or I don't know, like the journey that I've been on since speaking my truth, I don't think I would have been able to go through that journey and bring up a young child. Do you know what I mean? Because you still have to wake up in the morning and look after somebody who's dependent on you. She is no longer dependent on me.
Yeah.
So I've got the time and the space to process and work through all of the feelings and emotions and everything that's come with this release of speaking my truth. So I would say that is my threshold. Probably a long way of answering the question, but I think I realized that That is it.
It's just been a great conversation. So,
Yeah, it has.
sometimes
It has.
So let's go. Let's go quickly. The turning point in your life was what? Changed the way you relate to others and the world.
I don't know. Next. Can we skip that question?
So you got a new bike. Okay,
skip
hobbies, avocations, and pastimes. How about that?
Oh, hobbies. Hobbies. I've got a new instrument called a handpan. It's a fairly new instrument that's probably been around for like 20 years or something. It's called a handpan, and I love it. I spend time playing it. So that's a hobby. I like going for walks in nature, spending time with my immediate family, my partner, and my daughter. Yeah, those are my pastimes and hobbies.
That's great. Any regrets?
No, I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets because I think that all of the things that we experience and go through in our lives, like, make us the people we are today, you know? And without those experiences, yeah, I think about that and I think, no, I don't have any regrets. I used to regret um I used to regret dropping out of school and stuff like that. But I've reflected on that and I realized that that wasn't my fault. I had lots of issues as a teenager as a result of the trauma. So that wasn't my fault. Yeah, so absolutely. I don't regret that. So no, I don't have any regrets.
What do others not know about you?
I don't know. I think people see me because I've been speaking my truth and stuff like that. I come across very confident and resilient and strong. And I think people don't know that I do have a hard time. Like, I do. I'm always smiling and people always think, "Oh, why are you always so happy?" But I don't think people realize I have a hard time sometimes.
I've gotten that before.
Yeah. Or people don't realize that sometimes I will cry for days on end.
Wow.
And then come back smiling again. But because I think the smile makes people think that I don't have any problems, that I'm just speaking my truth and everything's great.
Yep. So, the strongest bond forged: personal, professional, social?
I don't know. These questions, are they the selection that I chose? Yeah. That I said I'd want to be asked. Okay. Did I keep this one in? Oh wow. Strongest bond. The strongest bond that has been forged has been with my daughter, Renee. And I think that's because I've always wanted to have a really good and healthy relationship with my daughter, one that is better and not as toxic as the one that I have with my own mother. So I reckon that's the strongest bond I've forged in my life.
Okay, very good. Is there anything you do that peers all have under their belts?
I don't compare myself to anybody. I look up to people, but I don't think yeah, I don't look at other people and think, "Oh, they've achieved that or they've got that, I want that." I work to my own goals, you know, things like a mortgage. I've always wanted a house. And having been homeless in my life, that was one of the things that I always wanted, to have a secure roof over my head and own my own home. And it's something that I've been able to achieve. So anything that I've always wanted, it's because I want to do it, or I want to achieve that goal, not because somebody I know has done it that I want to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So,
also understand some people, like, oh, I wish I could speak French like that guy, or
yeah.
stuff like, or a musical instrument or something, or things that other people have gotten that I felt that I was faking it, and then, oh, I wish I was really, really substantial in this. And I think some people want to be that way. I know that people think I really have to focus on what I need for me, which is what I think you're saying.
Yeah, I have all the things that I need that are not materialistic, and I have a lot of value in that. Um, but I think also what I'm saying is that if there is something that other people have got, and it's on my to-do list, like, because I'm so willing to try things and learn, and as I go in my life, it's never too late to learn anything or do anything. So if I know that something like learning another language is much harder when you're older, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. So if learning a new language, like a second language like French or something, was something that I wanted to achieve in my life, I've still got years ahead to learn it. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't look at other people and what they have and what they've achieved and want it, because we're all on our own path and our own journey.
What's your favorite weather?
Oh, summer is my favorite weather. Summer, it has to be summer is my favorite. I love summer because everyone seems to be smiley in summertime. I hate being cold, so I like when the sun's out. I like watching the sunset. I like summer. That's my favorite weather.
What do you want to be better at?
Hmm. I want to be better. I think I want to be better at networking. I want to be better at finding people who are speaking on the same difficult topics as I am, and be able to create larger scale events with them. So I want, based on the topics that, yeah, I want to be able to be better at networking with people so that we can potentially put on a bigger event, like a convention, um, to have this sort of speak your truth mission, where if people get the courage to speak their truth. But there's not just me doing it on my own, like, because it does feel quite lonely sometimes, this journey.
Yeah. So what should everybody know about you?
Everyone should know that I am kind, caring, compassionate, and genuine.
Okay. What is your abiding passion? What you care about most?
Right now, that I care about I care about creating safe spaces where people feel they can be creative in the spaces that I create. I care about that, that connection. I care about connecting people to be creative in spaces. And I care about it so much that it's just something that I think about every day and that I am working on. And I have created events for that to happen. And because the Adult Survivors open mic event and the Write Your Truth workshops are quite new, there's like 4 people that come consistently. So I'd like to grow those numbers.
That's great.
To make more of an impact.
That's awesome. Now, I had this one question, and people, some people have utterly floored me. My friend, the Chinese national, told me answer to this question because everything is singular and unique to each person, which I never knew. What name? What do you think of when you think of yourself? And he told me that everybody is named individually, and there's a significance behind it. And I did not ever know that. And it was very interesting. But what do you say? I'm Tim. People call me Timmy. People call me Timothy, Tim. But I'm first thing I think of myself as Tim, and I think of me as something maybe a little bit different than other people might think, because it's internal. So, what is your name? What do you think of when you think of yourself?
My name is Andreena, and when I think of myself, I think of resilience and courage in the face of adversity. I think of somebody who is strong and powerful.
What is your favorite color and why?
Well, right now, my favorite color is green.
Me too.
It's green because it's quite a earthy color. It's a nature color. It's nice. I like the color green, how it complements my skin. I just like it. I like all shades of green. And throughout my life, I've had, it hasn't always been my favorite color. I've had blue was my favorite color for a really long time. And then I went through a phase of really loving purple, a deep purple color. And now green is my color.
I agree.
Yeah.
These are things that are given me, so I wear them around my neck. And this is actually a piece of 8. This is sunken treasure, and it was recovered off a shipwreck about 1,000 yards from my parents when they were alive. And this is a memento. But my favorite colors are purple and green, but green is something very mystical about green. It's mystic. So I think that there's something, the philosophies, and they
your network, your signal is gone a bit funny. It's breaking up a little bit for me. I'm not sure if it's like that for you.
I hear you fine. I think maybe we could do one more call, one or two, and then we can finish. Okay. Is there anything you shun?
Shun, like things that I don't like.
Yeah, things you wouldn't do. Yeah, you like I don't want alcohol, or like I don't play basketball, or anything you may have done before, but you had enough and no, just no. I shun loud people. I shun
bullies. I shun bullies. I don't like anyone who bullies anybody else. I shun people who take advantage of other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get to, I'm sure this is the last question. I'm not going to go for anymore because we've spoken a lot. Your most treasured possession?
Do you know, I thought about this, right? My most treasured possession, and I'm going to say my phone. And I know that people wouldn't expect me to say that, but the reason why I think my most treasured possession is my phone is because of the amount of things I can do on it. I listen to my meditation app. I listen to music on it. I'm able to make notes in it. All right, my shopping list in it. I'm able to work from it. And emails. A lot of people say that I'm quite responsive. And the reason why I respond to emails quite quickly is because it's on my phone. So I get a notification when I get an email. Whereas when when I had emails on a laptop, I'd have to log into the laptop and it might be a couple of days before I reply. And so I would say that my phone is my most treasured possession. And that's because it can do so much. I can connect with people. I can run events from my phone. I can organize from my phone. I can do so much from my phone. I feel like my phone gives me so much. And it's something that I would have, if you had asked me this maybe 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said my phone. I also think my phone is my prized possession because I grew up in the 80s. So I come from a time where I knew what it was like to not have a phone.
Yeah.
And
people about going to gay bars. You had to triangulate, and you had to make phone calls from a phone, and in those days you had to be discreet because you didn't know who was listening in on you. And if you went out, the payphones, the lines for payphones were absurd. You'd actually have to wait 20 or 30 people, and everybody would be yelling at the person to finish up. And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they go back to their phone. And then you put your hand on this thing. And phones have transformed life since they first started to become. But I remember in the 80s when you didn't have a phone, and how crucial and vital it was to be able to effectively communicate on a phone. Now it's just you don't go anywhere without it.
Has anyone else said a phone? Because I know that probably sounds like such a superficial thing to say, but I think reflecting on what my personal favorite possession is, I definitely agree that it's my phone.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm gonna end it now. So I'm gonna say, well, we've come to the end of our 20 questions, and as usual, I have to thank you so much, Andreena, and hope that your book Charred takes off, it sells and keeps going. I hope we can help promote this in any way possible. I thank you. It was a pleasure to meet with you and to talk, and see you next time. And as the kiddies say, peace out.